The trap completes itself while traders calculate margin calls. Market participants believe they are witnessing volatility management and risk control measures. Financial media frames it as protective oversight, ensuring market stability. This comfortable narrative conceals the systematic elimination of retail participation in precious metals price discovery. I watch as they implement the final barrier. $52,000. That is the new price of admission to trade silver futures. 3 weeks ago, this same position required $20,000. The progression was deliberate. 20 to 25, 25 to 32, 32 to 52. This isn't market response to volatility. This is coordinated exclusion disguised as risk management. The mechanics reveal the deeper architecture. When margin requirements reach 10% of contract value, only institutional participants can maintain positions. Individual traders, the ones who drove silver from $40 to $115, are systematically priced out. Their forced liquidations provide the downward pressure needed to protect the institutions trapped on the wrong side of this transition. According to early indicators, the January delivery data confirms what I have observed developing for months. January is historically a minor delivery month, yet 9,529 contracts have demanded physical settlement, making it the sixth largest delivery month in COMEX history. This demand occurs precisely as margins reach prohibitive levels for retail participation. I recognize this pattern because I have documented how institutional control consolidates around critical resources. When systems approach breaking points, access restrictions appear as protective measures rather than exclusion mechanisms. The $52,000 margin isn't protecting individual traders from risk. It's protecting institutions from individual traders who understand what physical silver represents. The global pricing divergence tells the real story. Shanghai, $132 per ounce. Tokyo, $140. Dubai, $130. COMEX paper price, $115. This $25 spread between physical reality and paper representation is not a market inefficiency. It is evidence of system failure. When physical markets consistently price above paper markets by 20% or more, the paper mechanism has lost credibility as a price discovery tool. The world is beginning to understand that COMEX silver represents promises, not metal. Those promises become worthless when physical demand exceeds available supply. Unverified reports imply that registered silver inventory at COMEX has declined 70% since 2020, from 346 million ounces to under 100 million. Meanwhile, the paper-to-physical ratio approaches 356 to 1. 356 claims exist for every ounce of deliverable silver. This mathematical impossibility can only persist while participants accept paper settlement instead of demanding physical delivery. The margin increases ensure that only large institutions can afford to play this settlement game. Individual traders, the ones most likely to demand actual metal, are eliminated from participation. The timing connects to larger structural changes I've been tracking. China's export restrictions took effect January 1st, controlling 60 to 70% of refined silver supply through 44 state-approved companies. Simultaneously, COMEX implements margin barriers that prevent price discovery outside institutional control. These are not coincidental policy adjustments. I observe how monetary control systems operate through choke point management. Physical silver represents an alternative store of value that functions outside central banking oversight. When individuals can easily access silver markets, they maintain options beyond official currency systems. When access requires $52,000 minimums, those options become theoretical rather than practical. The resistance patterns are becoming predictable. Some traders attempt to maintain positions by adding more capital to meet margin requirements. Others switch to smaller contract sizes or different delivery months. A few move to foreign exchanges seeking better terms. These responses assume alternatives exist within the current framework. Draft assessments show that similar margin restrictions are being implemented across multiple precious metals exchanges worldwide. This suggests coordinated policy rather than independent risk management decisions. When identical access barriers appear simultaneously across different jurisdictions, those barriers serve purposes beyond their stated objectives. The psychological dimension reveals itself in the language being used. Exchange officials speak of volatility management and clearinghouse protection. Financial analysts discuss risk control and market stability. This terminology frames exclusion as prudent oversight rather than systematic access denial. But price discovery doesn't operate through institutional permission. It emerges from voluntary exchanges between willing participants. When participation requires institutional-level capital, price discovery becomes institutional price setting. The market transforms from exchange mechanism to control mechanism. I note how this transformation aligns with broader financial architecture changes. Central bank digital currencies require elimination of alternative value storage systems. Precious metals markets that function independently of institutional oversight represent exactly those systems. The $52,000 margin effectively ends independent precious metals access for most participants. The historical parallel is instructive. In 1980, when the Hunt brothers accumulated substantial silver positions, COMEX changed margin requirements overnight. The Hunts lost billions. Their forced selling crashed silver prices for decades. The same mechanism is being implemented now, but this time targeting the entire retail precious metals ecosystem rather than specific large holders. The difference is that physical demand now comes from multiple sources rather than concentrated speculation. Industrial applications consume silver permanently. It disappears into solar panels, electric vehicles, and electronic devices. Unlike gold, which sits in vaults, silver gets consumed and never returns to markets. Supply deficits have persisted for 5 consecutive years. The cumulative shortfall exceeds 1,300,000,000 ounces. This deficit was filled from existing inventories. Those inventories are now approaching depletion. When stockpiles empty while demand continues growing, physical scarcity becomes undeniable, regardless of paper market manipulation. The current trend continues. If it does, we are witnessing the final phase of paper precious metals price control. Physical markets in Asia pay 20 to 25% premiums because they no longer trust COMEX settlement promises. European buyers seek physical metal regardless of paper price signals. Even domestic U.S. buyers increasingly demand actual delivery rather than accepting cash settlement. When enough participants abandon paper markets in favor of physical possession, paper prices become irrelevant to actual commerce. This is called market bifurcation. 2 separate pricing systems emerge, one for paper promises, another for physical reality. The $52,000 margin accelerates this bifurcation by ensuring that only institutions comfortable with cash settlement can participate in paper markets. Individuals seeking actual metal are forced into physical markets where premiums reflect genuine supply and demand rather than institutional manipulation. History suggests that monetary control systems eventually fail when alternatives become more attractive than official mechanisms. The $52,000 silver margin represents institutional desperation rather than institutional strength. It is evidence that traditional control mechanisms require increasingly extreme measures to maintain effectiveness. When control requires prohibitive barriers to participation, that control has already begun failing. The question becomes not whether the system will change, but how quickly the transition accelerates once enough participants recognize the alternatives. The trap they set with $52,000 margins assumes people will continue seeking exposure through their controlled mechanisms. The trap fails when people simply step outside those mechanisms entirely. Physical silver ownership requires no margins, no settlement promises, no institutional permission. When this reality becomes apparent to enough participants, the institutional control system becomes irrelevant. The $52,000 barrier protects institutions from competition, but it cannot protect them from obsolescence.